Yeah, this protest came together with a group of folks from across the sphere in all types of different interests, but who are all together to condemn the hateful rhetoric coming out of the White House, and Republicans who have not stood their ground against that hateful rhetoric by the president. And so a large group of organizations, many of them members of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, decided, you know what, we're going to show that if you really want to do something, you can do it, and you can do it quickly.
And what is it that you guys are asking for from both the president and other officials?
Yeah, from the president, he's been hateful in his rhetoric since day one, even on the campaign trail. And so when we look at things like he's done, his actions, having kids in cages, the census question, we definitely know that he's targeting particularly Latino community and immigrant community, as well as all marginalized communities, really. And so what we would like to be able to say is that we want some leadership to be shown, particularly in the congressional side, and let's pass some types of measures that not only protect against gun safety, but also protect and value the humanity of communities of color and marginalized communities.
Now, I want to ask you a question without the sides, and this is a lot more sensitive, but I just want to ask you what your thoughts were on the shooting and what the president said after the shootings, both in El Paso and Ohio.
Yeah, the shootings are... The shootings were definitely, as a proud Latina, for me and my community, it was heartbreaking. I think El Paso has long been one of the safest cities in the country, and to know that the threat came internally and due to white supremacy and this kind of cloud and fear and climate of white supremacy, it just really highlighted what we've been building to. And so overall, we really want to call for people to come together in love and solidarity and support as all communities and start to push back, because he is supposed to work for us, and so we want to hold him to the line, as well as all the leaders who should be pushing back against him as well. I think from the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, which is very committed, and we have been since our inception, to the civil rights of people across the country and across the world, really, globally. What does that mean? And so we're really proud to stand with all of our partners today, and those who can join us. We have organizations in the states who we know are mobilizing, particularly because of the incidents of this weekend in Ohio as well as Texas, and the buildup that has been happening. And so we're really proud to be a part of a community who is pushing back in solidarity. Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You guys are with NBC? Yes, thank you so much. I don't have a card with me, but I'll send you an email and I'll let you guys know.
Are you with local NBC now?
Network.
Network, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he is actually doing...
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
You demand that he bring the Senate back in and help me make sure that if they don't vote life-saving measures, they are looking for justice in 2020. Let's be clear. This president descended down the escalator and he made this about who we were as Americans. He criminalized the whole people. But it wasn't just the rhetoric, it was his policy. What I found so beautiful was the moment that he tried to say
another person we can talk to.
Okay. We flooded airports that knock on our watch. It's not just rhetoric.
Sylvia, my name is Alex. This is my cameraman.
Hi. Do you want that in the background?
Yeah, I think we want. Do you want? What do you think? Yeah.
I'll put you on this side.
Yeah. So we have a different. Perfect. And then, are you here like with an organization, or you just came to on your own?
Just individually.
Cool. Okay. So just ignore him. You can look at me.
Okay.
I'll hold the microphone so you don't have to worry about it. Okay. You ready? Awesome. So if you could do me a favor and say and spell your name for me.
Sylvia Ruiz, Sylviaruiz.
And why did you decide to come out here today?
I decided to come out here today to condemn the white supremacy. Not just coming from the White House, but really the rise of white supremacy that we've seen recently. And specifically the targeting of immigrants. We're not invading this country. We've come here to make America stronger, and so I just really felt compelled to come out.
And I guess, do you think that, is this more of a reaction, do you think, to specifically to the El Paso shooting? Obviously that was something that seems to have been targeted towards Latinos.
Yeah. You know, just a few days before that, or a week before, I'm from California. I went to the Gilroy Garlic Festival, and that targeted our community, in a community of Latinos, African Americans, working class people. They were targeted specifically for what they looked like, and then followed up with El Paso, and then followed up in Dayton, where majority of those that died and were murdered were African American. We just can't look away from this rise of hatred that is promoted, not just by this White House, by an administration that just is giving them the tools to be able to do this. And I think that we need to put stronger gun laws in place. There's no reason why AK-47 should be on in our communities.
And is there anything specifically you're hoping that will come from this? You're hoping somebody's listening?
I hope the White House is listening, but I also hope our leaders in Congress, in the halls there, and in the state houses. Like, they have a responsibility. They can take action. The Gilroy shooter did not buy his gun in California. He bought it in another state and brought it across state lines, and it's time for us to act.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Okay.
Let's go back over there and shoot a little more of this.
Okay. If anything, I could probably concentrate more on wide shots, like establishers,
Yeah.
because I've gotten a lot of tights and
Yeah,
signs.
yeah, you want to do that? Let's shoot a little bit more wide shot. And that way you can get, because it looks like they tell you not to block the thing, so it's like one crowd here.
I'm going to see if I can stick out a little piece of bench for about a minute or
Yeah.
two.
And then, how does it look like maybe behind them? Like from behind the speakers?
Oh, I didn't go that far, no.
Do you think that might work?
Yeah,
Yeah?
absolutely.
Let's try that.
It'd
Just
probably
so
be
we can
easier,
show, like,
even if we went around.
yeah, like on the street side?
Yeah, let's try that.
Yeah.
East Americans, when will he reject racism and bigotry? It's not surprising, right? This is a president who ran on a campaign of demonizing Muslims, Latinos, and other immigrants. In his inaugural address to our nation, he painted a dark, dark future for our country. He even called it American carnage. And he has called African Americans and where they live disgusting, rat and rodent infested mess. He says that Congresswomen of color hate America and shall go back to where they come from. The president must stop. He must stop with this racist and dehumanizing rhetoric. That's right. But we also need others to do more. The Justice Department and the FBI need to step up and meet the urgency of today. This is a time for them to lead by prioritizing the white nationalist threat and giving it the resources it needs. We all know the reality, especially for American Muslims. The reality is that if this was an ISIS or Al-Qaeda threat, and there was somebody who had killed 3 people in Gilroy, and then 6 days later, 22 in El Paso, Texas, we would have already seen decisive action by the DOJ and by the FBI. 4chan and 8chan would have been shut down long ago. And the FBI and the Justice Department instead shamefully sit on their hands. How many more people must die before they finally act and protect us?
Right. Shame on them.
But there's another group of actors who have a role and have a responsibility to lead. It's tech companies. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. They must act with the moral clarity and leadership that this crisis demands.
Right.
White nationalist rhetoric thrives on their platforms and is accelerated by the very sophisticated algorithms that these very companies have created, feeding hate into the minds of people who thrive on this rhetoric. Again, we know that if it was ISIS or Al-Qaeda messages that were on these platforms, tech companies would have acted long ago.
That's right. Speak the truth.
Instead, these companies have profited from hate. It's not just the Trump campaign pumping millions of dollars into companies like Facebook, but even Amazon is helping 8chan profit to be able to fundraise off of their platform. So it's a national disgrace that we have the president, the Republican Party, right-wing media, and even tech companies who've encouraged or tolerated white nationalist threat for too long.
That's right.
I want to lead you with this. You've heard a lot of action items from us so far. I want to lead you with one more. Muslim Advocates is proud to stand with many of our colleagues, including those who are here today, in calling on tech companies to act against hate. And I want to invite you to go to our website where we have an active campaign calling on tech companies to do better, to stand up, and to use this moment to use their moral leadership to stop hate on their platforms.
Yeah.
Please go to MuslimAdvocates.org. Together, we will win this fight, but we each have to stand up and act together. Thank you.
Yeah! Shut hate down!
Shut hate down! Shut hate down! Shut hate down! Shut hate down! Shut hate down! And I want to say very clearly that when the president tries to disparage a minority, and when he basically sits idly by, as people say, send them back, send her back, he is talking about 132 million of us.
That's right.
He is talking about our families, our neighbors, our loved ones, our friends. Look around. This is America.
Yeah!
When he targeted Latinos by going down to El Paso, the white supremacists, he was very clear what his call to action was. That was to cause maximum harm, because El Paso is the safest city with 85% Latinos. It was clear what he was trying to do. We've heard the dog whistle turn into action, and we will not tolerate this. But when people say, well, my vote doesn't count, you know what I say? That's crap.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, in the halls of Congress, we have the singlest, most diverse Congress in this nation's history. And with that, not only have we passed background checks, but we've passed the DREAM Act.
Right.
We've demonstrated what our values are. And it's through the leadership of these young, brave individuals. When people say democracy doesn't matter, these are the ones that cannot vote. They were hiding in the shadows, and they came front and center and said, this is my country.
Yeah.
And have learned how to navigate the systems of power to make sure that we not only have their back, but that we let them lead. Yeah. So Anna, thank you so much for joining us right now from United We Dream.
Somos juntos, somos más.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sana Abrar, and I represent United We Dream, the nation's largest immigrant youth-led network. But I want to be clear, I don't only represent United We Dream. I represent the little girl who in 7th grade was told to go back to her country. I represent the sisters in Congress who have been shamed, who have been attacked, who have been racially profiled, who have been sent death threats time and time again because they are brave enough to open their mouths and speak the truth.
Right.
And I represent the many generations in this country who are committed to fighting for freedom and making America better. I represent immigrant youth and their families from all across the country, and the times that we are living in are absolutely terrifying. They're terrifying by design. After the El Paso massacre, there were undocumented immigrants who were too afraid to get medical attention for fear of having ICE called on them. We have seen and lived and witnessed the cases of individuals being attacked and dragged out of hospitals by ICE and Border Patrol agents.
Shut down ICE!
There were individuals who were too afraid to go out and find their loved ones, individuals who may have been attacked just because they don't have papers and they're considered less than in this country. This is their heartbreaking reality, and we send our love and support to these families who are living unbearable pain right now, not only in El Paso, but across the country in cities and rural communities all across that have been targeted by raids, by attacks, and the disappearances of our community members. This whole reality is by design. Our government has emboldened and empowered ICE and Border Patrol to detain, to deport, and to kill.
No more.
Our government has also emboldened a man who drove 9 hours with a mission
to kill Latinos and immigrants. Our government is amplifying centuries-old white supremacist ideology. They're using language that demonizes immigrants and people of color, and people are becoming radicalized, but the government is refusing to stop it and take action. Who is paying the price? Our communities. We're paying the price for the government's inaction to end gun violence and address deep racial inequality. Immigrants, black, brown, indigenous, Jewish, Muslim, Sikh, queer, students, and low-income communities everywhere are suffering the consequences. We cannot allow this to continue. No more thoughts and prayers. We need change when? Now! Every member of Congress, whether Republican or Democrat, must commit to consider legislation that confronts the epidemic of gun violence. In this moment of pain and fear, we demand bold leadership, no more status quo. We're about going forward. We're about taking 10, 20, billions of steps forward rather than returning to any kind of status quo on any issue, whether that is gun violence prevention or immigration. In this moment of pain and fear, we demand bold leadership in all levels of government that brings justice for our communities that find themselves at the deadly crosshairs of white nationalism and gun violence. Immigrant youth of United We Dream will continue to unapologetically organize and mobilize our communities. We know that the power to resist is inside each of us, and the power to win is in our solidarity, the kind of solidarity that you see here today, right in front of that house. We recommit ourselves to one another, and we recommit to dream beyond this moment, because we know that the only way that our communities can live and thrive is to live unafraid of deportation and unafraid of gun violence. We will all fight together, collectively, as a community with love and determination to realize that future. Thank you.
United we dream!
United we dream!
United we dream! United!
Thank you so much for those powerful words, and I think we must remember that a park on our house is a park on everyone's, and what we need to make sure that we're standing firm and strong. And when people tell me that our vote doesn't matter, not only have we passed gun legislation in Congress, not only have we passed DACA, not only have we passed TPS, but we've also passed fair wages. And it is through the long, hard work of everyone here and the millions of Americans who know that when they participate, the government is ours. That White House is the people's house. That White House is the people's house. The White House is our house. And November is coming. Voto Latino developed Voter Pal. We developed it because we recognize that some people are registered, but we have 15 million Latinos who are unregistered. We have 12 million young people who are unregistered. And with you, when you download Voter Pal, you can register all of us. So download it now. But I want to thank, in solidarity, SEIU, who has helped us with Voter Pal and so much more, because it is the fight that SEIU took to the streets, to the state houses, that now we have a piece of legislation that Mitch McConnell refuses to pass for fair wages. With that, please, Valerie, join us from SEIU.
Thank you.
Labor unite!
It's hot out here, right? But I'm hot, and all of us are hot by what's going on in this country. That's, we're going to take this heat and we're going to put it into action. On behalf of the Service Employees International Union's 2 million members, we join in solidarity. I'm humbled and proud to be with this esteemed group of leaders, and most importantly with all of you. Because you will change the tide that this country is going down. In Gilroy, California, an SEIU 5-to-1 member was injured and her 6-year-old son was killed. Her mother, a retired SEIU and 5-to-1 member, was also injured. In El Paso, Texas, our members in Texas work at Del Sol Medical Center and University Medical Center and are doing everything they can to care for their community. Our members in 1199 Ohio, throughout the state, including Dayton, are suffering with the trauma that these attacks cause. This is more than just an analytical or philosophical debate. People are in pain, and we shouldn't have to be getting grief counselors to go into local union offices or into communities. We should be about stopping that man and his hateful allies from doing the things they're doing to this country. They're fear and division, President Trump's fear and division, are spreading hateful talk and policies that fuel violence. Plain and simple. That's where it stops. It stops here and it stops now. Not one more. Not one more. Not one more.
Not one more. Not one more.
Once again, Senator McConnell refuses to govern, blocking Senate action even in the midst of this national crisis. The House already took bipartisan action. Let's give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
We have a long way to go, but Mitch McConnell is blocking the legislation that he should be moving. He needs to get out of the way.
Yeah, get out the way, Mitch.
This is a moment of moral crisis for this country. This legislation is just the beginning of tackling gun violence and white supremacist violence. But we need to stand together and demand the change that's necessary. If we don't, we will have, like a friend told me, and it'll be continuing instances. A friend was saying that they wanted to take their 7-year-old to get school clothes. This 7-year-old said, I'm afraid to go school shopping. Can we just order it online?
Whoa.
That's not the country we want. That's not the country I want for my grandchildren. That's not the country we deserve, and that's not the country that our ancestors fought for. So let's go into action. No retreat, no backing down. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Enough is enough.
Thank you, Valerie.
Enough is enough.
The next person I want to introduce is one of my Wonder Women, who whenever I call for counsel or direction or ideas, not only does she come through, but she has been an incredible fighter across the country for every possible issue. You have such strength, Michelle. But the fact that she represents teachers, that when you have a Parkland killing, their solution is to arm them, that's not okay. Teachers need to teach. They need to make sure they feel safe, and then they make sure that they're preparing the next generation of excellence. So, Michelle Ringett, thank you so much for joining us for
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I am Michelle Ringett. I am with the American Federation of Teachers, and I am here today
Go, teachers.
on behalf of Randy Weingarten and our 1.7 million members who are teachers. We are guidance counselors. We are the school personnel your kids go to when they need comfort.
Thank you.
But we are also nurses, we are healthcare professionals, and we are also public servants. And all of us from throughout our union, their families and their communities have had enough of what's going on.
Thank you.
We have bandaged kids. We have comforted them in their terror. We have treated families and tried to comfort them when they've lost loved ones in our hospitals. There is too much happening. We've been shot at, we've tried to protect children, and we have lost too many children, too many family members, too many human beings in this country because of our unwillingness to address our lax gun laws and to recognize the hate that's fueling it. I have a different message here today because I think we stand with locked arms with all our sisters and brothers here. I'm from the labor movement. You are all my sisters and brothers.
Yeah.
And we are now dealing with the fact that the fish rots at the head. And you know what fish I'm talking about,
Oh, yeah.
right? This decay is trickling down into our schools to the youngest among us, and we have seen an uptick in bullying. We have seen racism unleashed in our schools. We have seen children chanting, "Build the wall," or "Send them back." And this is a culture we cannot tolerate, and we must unite and move against right now. We need to fight for our democracy. We need to fight for the values that this country was founded upon and make them realized to the extent they never have been for too many people before. So I say on behalf of AFT and everyone here, like, we are down to win this, and we will win this. So thank you all for turning out in this heat, and I encourage all of you to make this a starting point of renewed commitment so that we own and move this democracy forward so that everyone feels that they have a place within it. Thank you.
I believe that we will
Thank you,
win.
Michelle.
I believe that we will win. I believe
that we will win. I believe that we will win. So,
that we will win.
I can tell you what cowardly leadership looks like. It is caging innocent children.
Yeah.
It is blaming the most vulnerable through the immigrant community. And it is trying to obfuscate and try to create real solutions of law legislation against guns when they try to place it on the arms and the shoulders of the mental health community. That is unacceptable. That That is cowardly, that is weak, and that deflects the real terror in this country, which is white supremacy. That puts us, every single person, in danger. If you think that it is not, again, the fact that they went to the safest city in the nation and massacred Latinos, it was sending a message that none of us is safe. And during this time, it is important that we talk about the real issues that this president is causing. He's causing us pain, he's causing us division, but he's also causing us incredible unity. Because we are speaking truth to power, we are elevating what needs to be addressed, and we are talking and calling out a spade as a spade. This is not about video games. This is not about mental illness. This is about a government and a president who is inciting hate to divide us so that he can basically wreak fear. And we're not going to let him win re-election with that. And with that, I want to welcome Jennifer Mathis, the Director of Policy and Legal Advocacy, Beslan Center for Mental Health Law. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Jennifer Mathis. I'm at the Beslan Center for Mental Health Law. We represent people with mental health disabilities all around the country. And I am here to tell you, from a disability rights perspective, that it is time to move away from the usual efforts to deflect attention away from the real issues we face, from racism, bigotry, and hatred, and away from real gun violence prevention by falsely blaming people with mental health disabilities for all gun violence. We heard from the president that it was mental illness that pulled the trigger, not the guns. We heard him talk about mentally ill monsters and about involuntarily confining people with mental illness. But these shootings were not about mental illness. Hate is not a mental illness. Scapegoating and demonizing people with psychiatric disabilities not only distracts from serious efforts to address gun violence and hatred, it also inflicts serious harm on people with mental health disabilities. The relentless repetition of the false idea that if someone has done something so terrible that it's hard to conceive of, that they must be mentally ill, that has become so common that it has infected our societal and our political consciousness. But it is wrong. It is unfounded. Less than 5% of gun violence is committed by people with mental illness, and in fact, people with mental illness are far more likely to be the victims of violence than to be the perpetrators. The false association of mental health disabilities and violence conveys to the public that they should fear and hate people with such disabilities, that they should reject them as their neighbors, as their tenants, as their friends, as their co-workers, and as their employees. That is not the kind of society that we want to live in. No. And it does nothing to address gun violence, and nothing to address hatred and bigotry. In fact, it promotes more hatred. It is time to stop reflexively blaming people with mental health disabilities and address the real problems we face. We can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I remind folks, when people say my vote doesn't matter, not only did we elect the most diverse Congress in November, and yes, I am an open record because I'm very clear what we have to do. November was a dress rehearsal. And in less than 6 months, we've passed comprehensive background checks, DACA, TPS, a fair wage, and the Equality Act. This is what America looks like. And when gun violence tragically kills and slaughters individuals at Pulse nightclub, it reverberated not only through the Latino community and through the transgender community, but through every single American. One of the most tragic pieces of that was a mother supporting her son who had just come out to her, died in the club alongside him. Violence is deadly, hate is deadly, and we have no space for it here. And thank you so much for joining us today from HRC, the Human Rights Campaign. Ben Needham, Director of Strategic Initiatives. Thank you for being here.
Hello, I'm Ben Needham from the Human Rights Campaign, and on behalf of the Human Rights Campaign, our President Alfonso David, and our 3 million members and supporters, we join our partners demanding action now on common sense gun reform. The mass shootings and gun violence we saw this past weekend in Dayton, Ohio, and El Paso have a direct correlation to the hate and hate speech we see and hear every day from white supremacy.
Right.
And let us not be mistaken. Donald Trump's racist attacks on Latinx folks, immigrants, communities of color incite violence. His racist attacks only empower those who wish to do us harm. While we mourn the lives lost in Dayton and El Paso, this isn't just about mass shootings. This is about the 40,000 people who lost their lives to gun violence in 2017, and the 100 people who will die today, and the 100 people who will die tomorrow, and the 100 people who will die the day after tomorrow,
No more!
and the 100 people who will die every single day to gun violence if we do not act now. Good. Got lost here. The level of gun violence we experience in America, it is not normal. And it's especially destructive to marginalized communities, including people of color, LGBTQ people, women, persons with disabilities, and religious minorities. We thank Speaker Pelosi and the House for moving H.R. 8, a bipartisan background checks bill. And we need this White House, Mitch McConnell, and the Senate to address this epidemic of violence with passing H.R. 8 and signing it into law, along with other common sense gun reform, or stand aside and let lawmakers who can. We stand with our coalition partners today. We are calling for common sense gun reform. We're calling on the Senate to do their job. We're calling on the President to do his job. And if they do not do their job, we will vote them out. If they do not do their jobs, what will we do? What will we do? What will we do? Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to have us joined by Rabbi Moline. He is a rabbi that will lead us into a moment of silence, because sometimes we need a little bit of resetting. Thank you so much for being with us. I know that you've been jumping around, but more importantly, this moment to give us peace, but also in solidarity for those individuals that have been killed because of mass shootings, and in particular to the El Paso massacre victims. Thank you.
I am happy to be here with you, even in a suit. We want to take a moment of silence now, and I'm going to ask you to focus on something very specific. It doesn't matter if you have a particular faith or you don't profess a faith, if you have a particular philosophy or you're finding your way. I don't want you to think about numbers. I don't want you to think about cities. I don't want you to think about communities. I want you to think it's too warm to go much longer. So let me leave you with this. Now that you've had this moment of silence, I hope you got it out of your system. Make a lot of noise.
I want to thank everyone for joining us and gathering us now. The idea was to channel our anger, but also to be in unity. But this is not over. So I would like to welcome Emma Einhorn from the campaign director for Move On. We'll be working directly together to make sure that this is the beginning, and we're going to finish what we started. Hi everyone, I'm Emma with Move On. Thank you to all the organizations here today. Thank you to everyone who's taking to the streets, and everyone speaking out, and everyone not giving up. Move On is made up of millions of members, people from all walks of life, all across the country, who are together actively demanding and creating an America where all of our communities can thrive. This year, we've come together to take action to pass the DREAM Act, which will provide permanent protection for immigrant youth, to support women's national democracy in their battle for equal pay, enact a free and deal to protect our planet, petitions to rename the
Let's see how it feels. Just a few decades.
and we've pushed companies to support workers, communities, and the environment. But now, we're forced to spend most of our time combating Trump's hate and racism, his attacks on our communities, illegal abuses of his power and our democracy, and his incitement of white supremacy. Trump's plan is to keep us defending the wings that our movement has secured and the leaders and activists who have sacrificed so much to protect us. So instead of focusing our energy to create a roadmap to citizenship for 11 million immigrants in this country, millions have marched in the streets, made thousands of phone calls, and refused to let the light on human rights abuses being committed in detention camps around this country by this administration fade. Instead of working to raise the minimum wage or combating the rise in wealth inequality, we're signing petitions and submitting comments to the Federal Register so that millions aren't excluded from our current safety net programs like SNAP and Medicaid. Instead of passing Medicare for all to ensure that all of us have affordable health care, we spent a year defeating all of the GOP attempts to repeal the essential protections in the Affordable Care Act, and we are still suffering under skyrocketing prescription drug prices. To build our vision of an America where everyone can thrive, we need to embrace our values of equity and respect and ensure that no one is above the law. Trump is the antithesis to our shared vision. He is spewing hate and racism to pit our communities against each other and attacking what it means to be an American. And the Republicans in Congress are even supporting the murder in El Paso took 25 million worth of time to report, but he still has
That's good. No,
It's the best way to hear those. Yeah, that's what I do.
Absolutely.
That's always what I do.
But I wasn't expecting you were going to do that. So I was like, my wireless message? So now do you have to go and actually edit this?
No, no. What I think I'll probably do is I'll log some of this out because Carl is my office mate, the guy who's penning the story. So I'll probably log it from that. I don't think I'm using it, unfortunately, because
This whole thing?
there's only one and it's only going to be like a minute 15. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm going to push for it, and that's why I'm going to go and log it and fix it and give it to Carl and like hand it to him on a silver platter, so that way hopefully he puts at least something in there. I'm hoping. I just don't know what direction they're going in. That's what happens.
And the threats of mass ICE raids. And when he hires a white supremacist like Stephen Miller in his administration, it clearly lays the groundwork for violence. Guns inflict hate-filled violence all over our country, and both parties have failed to curb gun violence. Both parties have been in power over the last 20 years after mass shootings from Columbine to Virginia Tech to Sandy Hook to Pulse nightclub to El Paso to Dayton. And yet Congress has failed to enact common sense reforms like mandatory background checks and banning assault rifles. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough with the attacks on immigrants. Enough with gun violence. Enough with white supremacy in the halls of power. Enough with a Senate that refuses to act and a White House that fans the flames of hate and violence. Together, we can reject and disarm hate. And now I've got 6 ways you can do this. All of them are listed at moveon.org/enough. Again, that's moveon.org/enough. The first, text enough to 668366 to denounce white supremacist violence and demand action on curbing guns. Again, that's enough to 668366. Second, call your senator at 833-487-4445. 833-487-4445 and demand they pass HR8, a gun violence reform package passed by the House earlier this year. Anyone like me live in D.C. and not have a senator? Yeah. Call McConnell. Tell him to bring the bill up for a vote. Third, attend an El Paso There May Vigil this Wednesday, tomorrow, August 7th. The vigils are against white supremacy and organized in communities across the country. Go to moveon.org/enough to find the link to RSVP, or if none exists in your area, consider hosting a vigil tomorrow. Go to town hall meetings. Members of Congress are home for another 5 weeks in their district. At moveon.org/enough, you'll find toolkits from gun violence prevention groups, many of whom that you've heard today, with background information and suggested questions to ask.
Show solidarity with the Latino community. They are reeling after this attack, and it is on all of us to stand with them. You'll find a list of local organizations at moveon.org/enough. They need volunteers to accompany people to ICE check-ins, to urge Congress to defund Trump's deportation machine, to donate to things like United We Dream's DACA Renewal Fund. There's a place for everyone in this movement. And lastly, register to vote. Elections are key moments to hold our elected officials accountable, and when they don't pass legislation like mandatory background check, supported by 97% of Americans, they must be held accountable. Get yourself, your family, your friends, your community, everyone registered to vote and ready to use our power in 2020. Again, all of this is at moveon.org/enough, and take action today to say enough is enough.
Thank you so much. And so, don't forget, if you're already registered to vote, because I'm assuming everybody else is registered right here, yes? Are you registered? Yes. But your friends and family and loved ones and community are not.
This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary